what happens if you don't know the answer? Well, you make your best guess. So there's no penalty for guessing. Ideally, you identify your first choice or your gut reaction and leave it alone, unless there's some compelling reason to change your answer. So like you misread something, or there is new information available to you that you now remember that you didn't before. But generally speaking, you'll identify your first or best response and then just leave it alone. Other things you can do, what if I don't know the answer? Now, if I had a nickel for every time I had someone email me and say, hey, Will, how do I answer the questions on the exam if I don't know the answer? And it's kind of a funny question because it's true. It is very difficult to answer a question that you don't know the answer to, but there are a few tips and tricks that can help at least get you in the right direction. So first things first, identify what body system is being tested. All right. So is this the musculoskeletal system, neuro system, cardiovascular? At least identify that. And then try to identify, all right, what are they asking me? A differential diagnosis, intervention, examination question. Like, what is it about this question? This one is sometimes helpful, paying attention to the lengthiest answer option, just generally because that has the most information contained in that answer option. It's not a surefire way, but like if you're making a total guess, just at least take a second glance at the lengthiest answer option because it may contain the most information. Try to eliminate any outliers. A lot of times you can do that. You can eliminate an outlier, say that doesn't sound reasonable at all. And so you can eliminate that, and then narrowing it down to 50-50 dramatically improves your chances of answering the question correctly. So what do you do if you don't know the answer? Well, you go through these steps of identifying the body system, stage of rehab, looking at the lengthiest answer option, eliminating outliers. And then if you really are down to 50-50 with no idea, sometimes it's helpful to then, as you make your best guess, try to consider what would the most reasonable therapist do in this situation? Or what would the textbook say about this? Consider what Susan B. O'Sullivan with physical rehab, what would she say in regards to this question? That third-party perspective can sometimes give you a little bit more insight that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have. So that's what you do if you don't know the answer to a question. So let's talk other things that I've seen, questions that are very tricky would include stepwise or sequential type questions, meaning what would you do next? Well, a lot of times when it comes to what would you do next, it's about the examination process. So the first things first is almost always you talk to the patient, get a good history, try to understand what the mechanism of injury was, what was the prior level of function, understand the patient that you're dealing with first, and then you get into your physical exam, starting first with visual observation, range of motion testing, strength testing, neurological testing, go through all of that. Then once you've completed all that, then you get into your special test, functional tests, and finally psychological testing if nothing else fits. So go stepwise through this process. Don't skip directly to interventions until you have completed your exam. So like a silly example of this would be if a person comes in after a rotator cuff repair, what would you do next? And one of the answer options is quiz the patient about the prior level of function, or the other one was Codman pendulum exercises. Well, if you haven't completed the exam, you'll want to know mechanism of injury and prior level of function before you go into Codman pendulum exercises. You need to complete your exam before continuing on. And I've seen a bunch of trick questions about that. So if ever you feel like there are multiple correct answers, go back and look and say, all right, is there one I would definitely do first and then this one? And that'll help a lot in the cases where you feel like there are multiple correct answers. Check the stepwise or order of events, and that can be very helpful.